This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.
Hi, this is Dan Gilvezan, and you're listening to the GeekCast Radio Network.
Jazz here, and I am so digging the GeekCast Radio Network.
Cliffjumper, commence countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now, ToyCast. Oh, yes. Listen in to the only toy podcast you will ever need.
Hello, and welcome to an all-new generation of ToyCast as we get the origins of any and all toy fans that we can. I am, of course, TFG and Mike. Joining me in this episode of ToyCast, which is episode 103, 103 episodes, folks. Yep, that's right. We're back. We took 7 years off, and we are back, and we are talking toys, not just topics. I've brought over my Origins format from the Pull Bag, where we talk about how people got into or out of reading comics, and from All Things Transformers, where we talk about how people got into or out of being a fan of the Transformers franchise. You got introduced to this person in episode 101, and you got introduced to the other person that I had on the last time, which was Josh. So he had his introduction, and now it's time for me to not knock the medical disc off my desk. And it's time now for us to talk to Mr. A. Baron.
Hello, hello, hello!
Wah, wah, wah.
we got ourselves a whole bag of sound effects going on tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There used to be a built-in recorder for Skype that used to do, you could insert all kinds of sound effects, but that's no longer a thing anymore, apparently.
Get yourself one of those obnoxious radio jockey sound effect clips.
Yeah, soundboards and all that. Yep. So, since Josh's episode, as of this recording, it has not been released or fully edited yet. I'm still in the middle of editing it. But since Josh's episode, originally we had 41 questions. We now have 42 because 42 is the answer to everything, folks. Starting off, what is or was the first toy you remember having as a kid?
I had to think about this. So, I mean, we've gotten all sorts of little dinky toys around when we were little, and it's hard to pinpoint one exactly. But if I am going to go back and think about one particular line, I mean, I only got one from this. It would be I think it's the Ankylosaurus, Ankylodon. I'm not terribly terrific with dinosaurs. From the Definitely Dinosaurs toy line.
Interesting.
I'm sure if I really, really thought hard about it, tracked all of my experiences back to, like 2 or 3. This is 87, so I'm like 3. That makes sense. I'm cognizant at the point. But, after that, it went on to like all the 80s franchises, the 90s franchises toys. But I think that was probably the first one that stuck out in my mind.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just reminded at how old I am compared to you and Josh. Ooh.
I won't tell anyone. Don't worry.
Yeah. Hey, at least Dave ain't here yet. Was there a particular adult who was supportive of you playing with toys as a kid? Was there anyone who was unsupportive?
I mean, I never really got any guff, so to speak, for playing with toys as a kid. So once I got older, my dad had came to me and he had said that he thought when I was little growing up that he wasn't there enough for me. And, I told him I never got that feeling from him. So I think looking back on it, because he felt that way, he went ahead and bought me like everything. So
wow.
I guess you could say he was the most supportive one I had with buying toys.
Cool.
He was there for Ghostbusters. That's probably the most tied in he was to a line with me. And then there was Turtles, of course, but definitely Ghostbusters was what he and I shared. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone necessarily unsupportive. There were people that kind of gleefully poked fun at me. I mean, it wasn't anything totally malicious. I remember my friend's dad. It's like, you playing with your dolls again? You got another doll? However, the fact that my friend also collected action figures and was also the same age as me. So I don't know if his dad just did that to everyone or if it was just me. God, what my grandfather, my mother's father, so he's like was 100% blooded Italian. And he would always refer to them as figus. I think he referred to them as like, you and your figus, instead of figures. And oh god, now we're really bringing up memories that I hadn't thought about. When I was little, when he would come over, he would take an item or two of mine and hide it. Do you have any idea how much that pissed me off?
What, you didn't like playing hide and go seek with your toys?
No.
That's funny. What types of toys were your favorites to play with as a kid?
I mean, obviously action figures. I had a few, like Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars, but those were all just gifts from people that didn't quite know me. I never went out on my own and bought Hot Wheels or anything like that. Roleplay items, more particularly the Ghostbusters ones. I didn't have many Ninja Turtle ones, but I think I was at that right age for roleplay toys as like a 3 or 4 year old. So figures and roleplay toys. I mean, it would explain why I have so many Super Sentai roleplay items. And they ain't cheap.
No, they ain't. And you just kind of answered this. What were your favorite childhood toys that really stood out more than the others?
I mean, by the time I got onto the Ghostbusters bandwagon, pretty much everything I was into, more or less, was a franchise type thing. So anything that wasn't heavily franchised just kind of went under the radar. It's like, it's a toy I have, blah, 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 blah. Like I had a few spare Transformers that I got mainly as gifts. And I was never huge into Transformers. Like I remember watching the cartoon, but they definitely weren't my favorite toys.
I see.
Sorry. I gave it a second shot in 2009 when I worked at Toys R Us, thinking, okay, I'm going to start buying a couple of these and see how they go over. And nothing came of it. So I bought a few and then that was it.
They're doing a lot better these days, I can tell you that.
It's like a new line every year.
Well, yes, but everything they're doing in the Kingdom line and stuff, it's like we finally actually have an actual Galvatron that is actually purple, that is somewhat fully accurate to the movie design and everything else. I mean, he may be $700 and something, but we actually have a Unicron that is a planet. Yeah. Not just this half planet thing that we got in Cybertron or Armada or whenever that was. I don't remember. Okay, so do you prefer the label of action figures, dolls, toys, or other labels?
I meant like in reference to what I call my toys?
Yeah.
I meant obviously action figures. I have dolls, and those are dolls. So I guess both of them would fall under the umbrella of toys. But, I have no problem explaining. Well, we'll get to this a little later when it comes to another question. But for specific reasons, if I need to sound a little more mature, I will refer to them as collectibles.
As Josh would say, they're commodities. Good guys, bad guys, which toys were your favorites to play with the most? Definitely
as an adult, I gravitate more towards villains. They seem to be much more colorful, much more like, they play by their own rules. But as a kid, I guess I gravitated more towards the good guys. I didn't have the I did have the imagination, but I didn't have the sense of humor and, everything that makes me right now when I was a kid. I was very controlling with things. So, it was the good guys at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. What is or was your favorite toy vehicle and or playset?
I mean, with playsets, it's going to have to be the Ghostbuster Firehouse. As a kid, I didn't have many of the 80s playsets, or I didn't have Castle Grayskull. I wasn't into Masters at the time. Really, like the three main playsets I've ever had are the Ghostbuster Firehouse, the TMNT Sewer Lair, and the Batman Returns Wayne Manor / Batcave playset.
Oh wow, yeah, that one was pretty cool.
Because by the time I started getting into Star Wars, when Power of the Force 2 came out and the special editions were coming out, I was making my own playsets out of like cardboard boxes and manila folders. It's like, this is the color of Tatooine, basically, so I'll just make an entire like mini city out of this. So, and I don't have to color anything in.
So as a kid, you were making mini cities.
I mean, we could probably get into this later, but the best thing about all of those commercials were the Batman commercials were the Gotham City scenery that they had there, and like it blew my mind. Like, I want this.
Yeah, where is this in the toy store? Yeah, exactly.
I know.
What features define a good toy to you? How true does the item feel in comparison to the source material likeness?
I mean, nowadays, as a collector, I want things to resemble what they're supposed to be. If I was a little younger and, you had to go with action features, I would like something that's unobtrusive. Like there are some that just like, I was watching a video on Chuck Norris Karate Commando, and the toy line for that, and like the action features made sense, and they didn't get too granted they were stuck in like a kick or a chopping thing, but it made a lot of sense to the toy and what it was. So as long as it does something like that, it's a feature that's true to the character.
Yeah, absolutely. What does toy packaging have to draw you in? So either as a kid or as an adult, when you go into a toy store, or I can't even say a toy store anymore unless it's somebody that just owns a toy store. But like when you go into the toy aisle and you're looking at, here's hoping the shelves aren't empty.
Oh God.
But like when you would go into a toy store, what was it about whatever packaging that, ooh, I want this one?
Well, that was the thing with the 80s and some of the 90s, is that they needed to make packaging that stood out from everything else, yet everything else is trying to stand out. I do have an incredible fondness for the Real Ghostbusters purple card and purple boxes. But the one that drew me the most in were the Ninja Turtle boxes, and that really sketchy kind of, not the greatest artwork, but there was something just so tactile to it. Like I could reach out and touch it.
Yep, absolutely.
And I had gone into Walmart last week and I saw the Ghost Popper, which I almost bought. It was like $20, and it looks like it's molded from the same thing. However, it's not molded in the right color plastic.
Oh no. The
original gun is black and has a gray handle. This was done in that blue-purple color that the backpack and the gun came with.
Right.
So I guess, I don't know, maybe they're going to try to release that down the line and then just have everything kind of mix in with one another. But it was in a purple box, which really stood out to me. And it was a good price, but because of the coloring, I just couldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah, it has to be accurate. You got to get your plastic colors right, people. Do you open your toys or do you leave them packaged? If you keep the toys packaged, do you have any specific criteria for that?
Like if the packaging's cool, or if, especially with a lot of the Japanese figures that I have, which come with tons of accessories, it'd be easier, or it's easiest to just keep the boxes and keep the accessories stored in the boxes. Mm-hmm. Because if I tried to baggy all of them, it would be a nightmare. And like a lot of the Japanese stuff has really interesting, bright colors that you don't necessarily see in the regular boys action aisle in the US.
Right.
And just like the photography is really nice, or if it's something that's vintage, I definitely want to keep the box for that. But in terms of action figures that I display, the majority of my figures come out of the box.
Very cool, very cool. If as a kid or an adult you only were allowed to choose one toy franchise to collect from, which one would you choose and why?
God.
This question is only for actually one specific person, but since it's on the list, it's because of this person is the reason, because he is only allowed one collection in his house.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
I'm just gonna cave and say Real Ghostbusters, because we're not getting any new Real Ghostbusters toys. I mean, we got like, what was it, the diamond ones, but they just reused the bodies from the movie ones.
Yep.
And like, it just feels like we get teased and teased and teased about a new collector grade Real Ghostbusters line, and with the ghost, no less. Am I ever going to get a boogeyman? I don't know. So I might as well just collect the old ones, because it looks like we're never going to get the new ones.
Mm-hmm. I blame the Scolari brothers.
Ugh, Scolaris.
As an adult, do you prefer vintage or modern toys?
I do have a handful of vintage stuff. Mostly if it just like fits my aesthetic, I'll get them. But for the most part, I do prefer modern toys.
Yeah. What is one toy you can always play with?
Are we gonna go PG with this?
You know what I mean. Damn it. At least with you, I don't have to edit that out.
True. I mean, most of my things either get stored or put in the display case after about a week of me owning it. And then if I have people over and, some drinks are involved, I like to bring my things out and show them off. And a lot of people can get behind that. And I get super excited like a little 5-year-old showing off my things. So usually what brings everyone together better are like the roleplay items. Mm-hmm. Now I also have this terrible track record of when I let people see my things, they get broken.
So yeah, you kind of let all the Duvals in the world into your apartment then, because Duval likes breaking.
Oh yeah,
he doesn't like breaking things, but
we know that story.
Yeah, he's a klutz. Love you, Jason.
The last time I brought my toys out, it was the gold Zeo Ranger battle staff, the Bandai America collector one, which is full size. And my friend takes it out of my hand and she starts swinging it around. I'm like, oh my God, don't drop that. Don't drop that. For the love of God, don't drop that. She did not.
That's good.
Yeah. I was on edge for a couple seconds there.
Yeah, that would not have been good at all.
Yeah, but I don't think there's one specific.
Even though there are always toy lines that people never purchase, are there any that you specifically and purposely avoid? This can be a toy line, a specific character, etc.
And anything that just has awful action gimmicks and what have you. Sorry, Josh, but like any of the 90s Kenner stuff. Okay, let me rephrase that. Any of the 90s movie Kenner stuff. Jurassic Park gets a pass, but everything else, like I would see those figures on the peg, and even the presentation just bored the living hell out of me.
Yeah. Nobody but Josh loves the Waterworld toys.
He's going to make bank on those one day. Well, how much would I bet?
You know what? And that's fine. That's all well and good for him. That's great. If some moron out there wants to spend money on toys that nobody else cares about, it's okay. So Josh's love for Kenner's Waterworld toys, which again, yes, I admit it. I never even knew there were Waterworld toys. Hell, La La Land Records just recently released the Waterworld expanded soundtrack. But the point is, that movie was god-awful. And I can't believe they made toys from such a god-awful movie. Now, I know that there are toys from plenty of other god-awful movies. But Josh's love for those toys is like my love for Caddyshack 2 or Neverending Story 2. I love it, and it's fine, but yet nobody else I know will ever admit to saying that they enjoyed it or they liked it or whatever kind of thing. So we get it, Josh. We get it. Are there any toys in the past or currently that you wish you hadn't bought them? Are there any toys that you may have sold that you regret letting go?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was some initial regret after buying the 2011 Thundercat line.
Mm-hmm.
I still have all of them, just because of the sheer fact that I'm a Thundercats fan. And
right.
I don't know. I mean, could these have been one of those toy lines that, no one bought and then give it like 10 years and then everyone's looking for it because no one bought it? I don't know. So we'll see about that. There are some other lines that I have in boxes, hoping. I initially bought them to hopefully resell them down the line, and I think that's already starting to bear fruit. However, I don't know if I want to let them go after a while.
Oh no.
Any that I've sold that I've regret letting go. I guess I could say my Masters of the Universe Classics figures. Basically, all I have left are a He-Man and Skeletor with Battlecat and Panther.
Mm-hmm.
I had the majority of the line up until 2016 or so. Sounds about right. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get any of the Super 7 stuff. So, I'll watch all these videos about them and then I think, oh God, I wish I didn't sell them. But at the same time, collecting that line and the whole MaddieCollector.com was an experience that I was along for the ride. And so I have all of those memories burned into my brain, and, I can't let go of those. I can't sell those. So eventually I just felt like, okay, these have outgrown their welcome here. I learned a ton about Masters over the past 10 years through a friend and through this collection. But I was never a He-Man fan as a kid. So I just kind of got what I wanted out of it, and then sold it.
Yeah, there you go. That works, and that's how you should probably do some lines where, somebody says, oh, you should check this out, and you end up watching all 130 episodes, and you're like, oh, I really would like to have these classics toys.
Well, that's my problem.
If only Mattel and Digital River would actually sell them to me versus every other scalper.
Right.
That was on the damn... Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. You were saying the problem?
I lost my train of thought there.
Oh, okay, there you go. How large or small is your toy collection? Do your toys take up the whole house, or are they relegated to one room, shelf, or something like that?
Oh, Mikey.
I already know the answer to this question, but I still have to ask the question.
Yeah, my toys are littered in every room of my apartment, with the exception of the bathroom. They are everywhere. However, compared to some diehard collectors, my collection is not seen as that big. I've sold a lot over the past decade or so, it has shrunk, to say the least. So I don't think it's that big, but it's definitely not that small.
How do you keep track of your collection?
I don't.
So you don't have a spreadsheet somewhere letting you know every single thing you've ever bought?
No, I don't.
Really?
I'm worse with clothes. There are sometimes I'll go through my drawers like, oh my God, I did buy this.
Wow. How do you display your toys?
I like to have them in my 2 display cases. My larger of the 2 needs to be fixed. There are empty shelves there from things that I've sold. I have to rearrange to account for all of my X-Men Marvel Legends. And a lot of things are on shelves, like almost any space that has a ledge of some sort, there are toys on them.
Cool. If you could only keep one toy from your entire collection, what would it be and why? Basically, if, heaven forbid, the apartment catches fire, but you could only save one thing, what would it be?
I love everything for different reasons, but I guess for nostalgic reasons, it would be my original rubber-headed Michelangelo from TMNT. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have the accessories. He doesn't have his belt. He's got a scratch on his chest. It's not too bad. It just looks like minor battle damage. But I don't know. Of all the 4 turtles, he was my favorite. Always. And I just have a lot of memories with that figure.
Very cool. And on the opposite end, and here's the Toy Box Challenge. You get one 18 by 18 by 18 box. The only toys you can keep have to fit in the box. What can you pack into it?
Well, there go a lot of my roleplay items. At least the newer ones. Like the Japanese ones, as you go back, they get smaller and smaller. So I would definitely take my boxed Jetman changer. That's pretty small. Turtles. Probably a Skeletor of some sort. I guess probably my classic Skeletor. I'll take Panther with me to boot.
Don't touch!
Hurry, Skeletor, hurry! I am hurrying.
If they don't update him any further, but I'm sure they will, it's the retro carded Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, very cool.
Even though he cannot fully raise his hand up, his head up. So I have him in a pretty cool crouching pose, but his head is kind of down.
So you have emo Spidey.
Yeah. I just have to give him a little flip of the hair. I might as well take Mary Jane with me.
Well, if you're going to take Spider-Man, you might as well take Mary Jane.
And this was the assembled one using the body from the 2-pack and the head that came with Gwen Stacy.
Interesting. Very cool. Anything else?
Maybe a... not Food Fighters. Grocer Gang. I collected... I think I have every figure that came out from that line, and it was really nice to see something that wasn't attached to some sort of franchise or IP, and it was just really refreshing to see at Toys R Us and Five Below. Would I take the toilet with me? I'd probably take the green toilet. Actually, now that we talk about it, I will also take the Fearsome Flush with me, because that was my dad's favorite real Ghostbuster toy.
Very cool, very cool.
I have a crouched Vegeta figure sitting on it. He looks stressed.
Yeah, very uncomfortable, apparently. Are you a Funko fan?
I'm going to have to say no. Okay. I have maybe about 5 pops, because they're like very specific ones. And, you don't find many collector pieces of whoever it's about, or there's just something about it that made it a little more presentable than like a regular one. Hence the Skeletor on the throne pop that I have. I probably wouldn't get a regular one, but it's got all the attitude in it, so I couldn't really say no.
The only regular one I want, because I don't have it currently, is the Terror Claws Skeletor.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I don't have my phone next to me. I believe he was a Target exclusive, but I don't think so. I'd have to look it up later. Because that's different enough. Like Battle Armor Skeletor, anybody can have Battle Armor Skeletor. Regular Skeletor, anybody can have regular Skeletor. Like my He-Man, the one He-Man figure I do have, well, I do have Prince Adam, because Prince Adam is a separate character, even though he really isn't. But like for me, with the like getting an actual version of He-Man, I have Slime Pit He-Man, which was a GameStop exclusive. So he's basically looks like he's all covered in it. Looks like he spent a day at Nickelodeon Studios, kind of thing. So that's very cool. So yeah. All right. What was the most money you spent on a toy or a collectible item that is deemed to be a toy?
Are we accounting for shipping?
I guess. Sure. I mean,
I think with shipping, this beats out the Sentinel.
Okay.
Because with shipping, I think he's like $350. I spent $400 roughly on a collector grade, so this is meant to fit an adult, not a kid. Kamen Rider Kiva belt, and it's got voice activated commands. This was properly imported rather than me having to go like get an overseas shop to send it to me.
Right.
So the instructions were in English, even though if you're to talk to the device, you have to speak in Japanese.
Okay.
Which is fine by me. I have other devices which are Japanese voice activated. And it's fun to do. It's got a little bat in the center, and he kind of acts as a little buddy in the show, and you pull him off and like he chomps on your hand, and then you have to put these little slot things into his mouth. And it gives you different powers and whatnot. However, if it's boxed up right now, but in order for me to take it out of the box and show someone, it's a nightmare because everything is individually bagged and there are multiple pieces to it and you want to be delicate. Oh God, I think I might have only opened it once.
Can you tell, folks, being a toy collector is very stressful.
Oh my God, is it ever?
What toys are you collecting or actively searching for right now?
Well, if Target would somehow get me a Major Blood.
I mean, seriously, okay, I was going to say, is it that hard? But yes, it is that hard. I hit 4 different targets yesterday. Nothing. Now, I'm sure if he's going to hit the pegs in this area, it's not going to be for a while, but I'm starting now. I hunt regularly for modern things at Target, and if I search long and hard enough, I typically eventually find them. I did wind up finding Baroness. By the grace of God, I found Baroness. So I'm hoping over the next month or two I'll be able to come across him.
Very cool, very cool. This feels like the same question, but what modern and or vintage toy lines are you collecting right now? So, yeah, it is kind of the same damn question. I got to redo some of these questions.
I mean, I only answered one figure. Well, I mean, there are plenty of lines I'd like to collect, like that new Ninja Turtle line. Oh, I mean, they look really nice, but they are so expensive. Like I've been waiting forever for essentially a continuation of the Mattel Thundercat line, because this is something I've been waiting forever for. However, at this point, it has taken them so long to get off their asses and make this happen. And at the price point that they're at, there's no way I can keep up with this. And it crushes me to say that. If they make a Hammerhand, I will definitely get him. I do not have any of the Ninja Turtle line. However, I'm on the fence about getting that variant Mutagen Man. And if I were to only own one figure from that line, it would 100% be Ace Duck.
Well, of course. You
So
gotta
when
have
he
an
comes
Ace
out,
Duck somewhere.
I will get him. I mean, there are so many. I mean, I also get Marvel Legends regularly. There are so many vintage lines that, pop up in my head. It's like, oh, maybe I'll start collecting this, or maybe I'll start collecting that. And then, they just kind of go by the wayside and I never wind up starting them. I would love to get an entire mint on card collection of the Dark Knight collection for Batman. Mm-hmm. I have one, which is the Iron Winch Batman, which was my very first Batman figure. The card is pristine. I forget if it's punched or not. It might not even be punched. Or it's punched, but it's not punched out.
There you go.
The Batman animated series would be nice. I have a carded Joker, but that's it. I don't know how done I am getting JoJo's Bizarre Adventure figures. I have the main JoJo and the main villain from each arc of the original timeline, not the rebooted one that has two different stories going on. Those are expensive. So usually, once I haven't really read that part of the manga, so once I do, I'll probably get more attached, and then we'll immediately want to buy the products for it.
There you go. Yeah,
that's my big problem.
That's usually somebody's. It's usually all of our big problems. We see something where it's like, oh, this reminds me of this, or oh, I like watching this cartoon. I want to own a piece of this cartoon, whichever cartoon, anime, whatever you want to call it. And again, say what you will about the movie, and I don't know why he loves those toys so much, but maybe as a kid, Josh loved Waterworld, and, maybe that's why he has those toys. But, it just depends on who you are and what you like, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you visit toy shows or conventions?
When they're happening, absolutely. New Jersey seems to be a hotspot for a lot of conventions, but I haven't been to many out in that state in a while. There is ZoloCon, which normally happens in the fall in this area. There is also RetroCon. I'm sorry, ZoloCon happens in the winter. RetroCon happens in the fall, and I try to go to that in varying degrees. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll mingle and I'll be there for a couple hours. Hopefully I have someone with me. Or there are other times where I'm by myself and I know exactly what I'm looking for. I'll make 2 rounds of the floor, the selling floor, and be out within 45 minutes.
Wow.
I know what I want.
That's good. What do you think it is about our generation that causes our childhood toys to mean so much more to us than, for instance, our parents' generation?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the way they were branded with all the cartoons as kids. Mm-hmm. Because how'd the rule go? Did they not have that before 1981, 82? And then they allowed tie-ins to happen after that. So you have all the mythology that's presented to you that you store basically in these figures, and then you have your own mythology that you may make up, and then you to bring them together, and it's just one giant hurricane of nostalgia.
Right. What is your motivation for purchasing toys? To display, to play, to fiddle, to, I don't know, hang upside down like a bat?
Mostly to display and to fiddle. I'm more of a fiddler, not necessarily a player. My process with a lot of action figures or toys are that I will buy it, bring it home, or, it comes in the mail, and I'll open it, and I'll keep it on the coffee table for about a week. Play with it, more so just fidget with it, play with the joints, make sure everything's working, make sure the joints are loose enough, not too loose, heat anything up that needs to be heated, and then once I figure out a way to incorporate it into the collection at large, I will, or just box it up and put it in the closet.
Very cool. Have you ever purchased a toy for a child with the ulterior motive of playing with it yourself?
Not yet. I have a niece now, so that will be coming, that will be in due time. So we'll see how her personality blooms in the next coming years.
Okay, so how old is she currently? Was she just born?
She's 2 months.
Okay, so she was just born.
Yeah.
And thank you for... Yeah, okay. All right, so Question 29 is, have you ever purchased a vintage toy for a child because you enjoyed it as a child? For you, I'm going to modify that question and ask it this way. Which vintage toy that you loved as a child are you going to be getting for her?
I mean, that's a little tough because I don't know what type of personality she'll have. Whether, it's like, oh, I don't care about playing with boys' toys, or, you want something gender neutral. Oh, what would be a good one? So was the initial run of Power Rangers, was that after your time?
No.
So do you remember those gloves that they made, and they eventually made boots, which had little activation chopping features, and then when you crossed your arms, it would play the theme song?
Yep.
So I had the Blue Ranger and the White Ranger, and my sister had the Pink Ranger ones. And we had a ton of fun with them. My parents loved them. We would bust them out when they'd have friends over. They would all get a kick out of that. That seems like a pretty solid choice if they were ever to remake those.
And what I mean by, as far as me not being completely out of it, is I knew what they were. I wasn't actually, because by the time Rangers came around, I was 13 to 15, so... Mm-hmm. But I still know what you're talking about. I've seen them, so yeah, that's very cool. All right, are you a toy customizer? Do you do any modifications or anything like that? Painting, building, dioramas, that kind of stuff.
I had done some modifications in the past when I met Josh for the first time, albeit for 5 minutes. Even though we've known each other for a couple years now, I've only met him in person for about 5 minutes. He sold me a number of food fighters, and they were a little worse for wear. I mean, they weren't terrible. Like, they just had some wear marks. So I went and bought some model paints that matched them and touched them up pretty well. And after that, I would, in case I had a figure that just wasn't meeting my needs, like, I got the the movie Doctor Strange from the Marvel Legends wave, but his temples weren't white enough, so I just touched them up. And then I wasn't happy that they gave us a more modern / I think video game looking Dormammu from the Build-A-Figure from that set, which was just a carryover from the Book of Ashanti set.
Right.
So I took like the skirt piece off, and then I tried to color him more classically. But then Hasbro announced that they're going to put out a vintage-looking Dormammu, which my one friend already has. So I will be looking for that in the meantime. And like the one I have is in pieces in a bag, which I've long since given up on. And at this point, there's no reason to continue. Dioramas, abso-freaking-lutely. I have a Monster Island diorama for my Godzilla and Ultraman figures. When I had my Masters figures, I did some backdrops out of foam, which were made to look like Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain for each faction. Oh, wow. I still have those. They're really neat. I don't want to get rid of them, even though I have no purpose for them at the moment. I built a Japanese, I guess you'd call it castle interior. If you remember, the Fwoosh did the Articulated Icons Ninja series.
Right.
And I went essentially all in with that. So I needed somewhere for them to hang out. So I have this little diorama that looks like a little Japanese castle room. Like it's all fabricated and it's got stuff everywhere. It's a little neat, but I have nowhere to put it. It's been sitting in my second bedroom on the floor for a couple of years now. But then I also ordered, which it's supposed to be coming this month, but I don't think it is. It is a city diorama set for your Ultraman or your Godzilla figures. And so this is something I've been dreaming of for years, so much that I bought 2 of them, and they weren't necessarily cheap. So I have to figure out a way to build a giant city setup for my Ultraman figures, which is going to be pretty sweet. And then the Sentinel is coming in August or so, and I want to have a full diorama set up for that to be fighting the giant-size X-Men team.
Very cool.
So I have already started preliminary sketching and just test pieces, so I kind of know what I'm doing once I finally get to it. So I'll probably have that done by the end of the summer.
Very cool. Do you think toy companies should specifically have adult collector toys, toys for children, or find a way to mix both?
I mean, I thought it was kind of cool how in the early to mid 2000s, they did a good combination of mixing kids' toys with adult collector toys. Or they were technically geared towards kids, but they were given the aesthetic that a collector would gravitate towards. Hence, like the 2000X line, Marvel Legends. I mean, they were sold in toy stores, and I've seen enough videos where, you're supposed to gear these initially to kids, but people like you and I buy these things up. So I think by having both in one toy, it would help bridge the gap between kids and collectors. Yeah. Or not even that, like a collector-graded toy, as long as it's not brittle, like, let's say, a NECA figure.
Right.
Be able to... Don't, for lack of a better term, market down to kids. Like speaking down to kids, but like marketing, like, oh, well, you're 8 years old. You need something super kidified and whatnot. It's like, no, kids aren't stupid. They're not going to screw around with it. I mean, if they lose an accessory, they lose an accessory.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a my parents got rid of my toys story?
Yes. So I got to an age, probably like early teens, where I was revisiting all of my Ghostbuster toys that I still had. And I tore our house to pieces looking for the Ghost Trap roleplay item, because that was hands down like my favorite Ghostbuster toy ever. Looked and looked, never found it. And then I eventually asked my mother. She said she didn't know. And then she eventually came back to me and said, I think we gave that along with some other things to our family friends' kids who are a couple years younger. And okay, let me get in contact with them and see if they still have it. And they didn't have it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it had eluded my grasp. However, I do have the Matty Collector one.
There you go. Was there ever a moment when you were done with toys? Have you ever considered stopping as a collector or even selling your entire collection?
I don't know. Define how done we're talking about.
Like, you've reached a point where your apartment it's exploding at the seams. It will not hold any more toys. Like, you're just done. Like, the way Dave put it in episode 100, if they stop making the 3 3/4 inch or 4 inch line for Star Wars, he will stop collecting Star Wars, kind of thing.
I mean, I feel like I'm in the same boat as a lot of people, where they graduated high school, went to college for a couple of years, and then they kind of not necessarily grew out of it, but they didn't really have the means to keep up with it or have space for it.
Right.
It's in a dorm room. There was I'd say maybe only like a year where I didn't collect anything. I mean, I did here and there, but as a whole, I did not. Then like episode 3 toys came out, and then I got everything. And those started to fill up some of my shelves in the dorm room. I mean, there have always been, little ideas that popped in my head, like what if I stopped or what if I sold the whole thing? Because as much as I love the stuff, the more you have, the more complicated it gets. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, the more exhausting it gets, but you're still kind of hooked to it because you just want like the most iconic version of one particular thing. But, here are a couple hundred things that you want the most iconic thing for. And if I just got rid of it, it would wipe the slate clean, and...
You know what to do. The clean slate protocol, sir?
You'd have to start all over again and find everything all over again.
Well, yeah, there's that too. I'm sure if I just gave it all up, there would be some point where it's like, okay, let me start doing this again.
Yep.
And I wouldn't want that to come and bite me in the ass again.
Yeah, you're young enough where if you needed to start over, you could, but you don't want to at this point.
Yeah.
What is something that does not have a toy of it you'd love to have it in toy form?
I think we discussed this in the other episode, but I would love a Hot Toys Roll Julia and Bison. Or at least any Bison that looks like Roll Julia.
Yep, that's right.
If he had a little talking like box in the back of his in his back, that would I can't quote it, but it's like, all right, come down like lightning.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to just rip that out of the movie because obviously it's not like they've got his voice frozen on ice.
Yeah.
So sad. But yeah, that would be very cool. What is a toy that you'd love to have scaled up and functional for real people?
So like for instance, let's say like a communicator in Power Rangers that actually worked.
Yeah.
I mean any sort of. Well, they do scale up the Kamen Rider belts, but they don't technically transform you into Kamen Rider.
True.
So I guess those are off the shelf because those get made. I feel like most of the things that I want have been scaled up at this point.
How have your past significant others, mates, partners, whatever you want to call them, dealt with your collection?
Well, Mallory, my ex it's been about 4 years now. She was fine with it. I mean, I'm sure if it got to a point where it got real bad, she would have spoken up and said something. And I made it a point to make sure that I wasn't hoarding toys too much when I was with her, that I made sure that I sold stuff. So when we were together, I boxed up a bunch of stuff, went to a couple conventions or the local toy store around the corner from me, and I sold stuff. However, the past 4 years of dating has been a little tricky. So I feel like there are some people who say they're okay with it, but are secretly not.
Yeah.
Like there have been some people that I've dated and they've come over and I always give them the warning that it kind of looks like the 40-year-old virgin's apartment or house or whatever it was.
Right.
I was like, just so you know, so you're prepared. And I think there have been a number of times where they seem to be like cool with me, and then I show them the apartment, and then I don't hear from them again.
Oh no! Well, then that wasn't the right person for you. Then obviously,
right? I'm always struggling with that.
Yeah. Speaking of struggling, what part of collecting do you struggle with?
I mean, after what I said about Turtles and Thundercats, it's got to be the price point.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of Marvel Legends that I want, and they're starting to creep up again. My Spider-Man collection is near towards what I want it to be. I have a lot of the X-Men that I want. All I really want are more Fantastic Four characters. So that may I'm by far cherry picking Marvel Legends more than anything now. Yeah, like the price point and just like how much fun can I actually have with this?
Yeah.
Because I think I suffer like a lot of other people do, where we buy to fill a hole. And you get super excited when this thing is coming, and you can't wait for it to come, and then it comes, and you open it up, and you play with it, and then it goes on the shelf, and then you feel the urge to get something else because that rush is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of, and you find listeners are going to hear me say this every time because it's just the way it is. That's why, like, I look at that Leader Class Galvatron, the one that's either out now or coming out for Transformers Kingdom, the one that's the fully accurate to whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that looks amazing. I would love to have it, but I don't need it because it's not. First of all, it's $50. I could buy single packed 5 McDonald's Funko ad icons: Ronald, Grimace, Birdie, Hamburglar, and the McNuggets or whatever. Like, I look at that thing and, like, I love that they've done it. I love that it's there. Same thing with the Commander class Rodimus. For me, the biggest thing that I have a problem with is the price point, and I understand why the price point is there. I'm not saying it should not be there, but because I am on such a strict budget, and right now my focus is Funko, it's like I admire that from afar, and I'm okay with that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. Price point is...
Yeah, that's kind of why, like, I will be interested in an item that I don't have any real connection to, but I kind of want it. So I will just go on YouTube and watch reviews for it. So I kind of get a feel of what I would be experiencing if I were to buy it, because I experience it and then I move on.
Yeah.
So by doing that, you know, I just get what I need out of it and then, you know, focus more on what I actually want.
There you go. What is one positive and one negative memory you have with buying toys?
I think I can bundle them into one instance, and that would be working at Toys R Us.
Okay.
So I mean, it was equal parts great and a nightmare to work at. Also, my collecting habits got way out of hand when I started working there, because the one friend I made there was a huge collector, and he collects like all the Marvel Legends, all the DC classics at the time, all the Master stuff. So it had me experimenting with things like I had said with Transformers, that I, like, okay, let's see if this works, if this plays out, and sometimes it doesn't in that case. And then, like, I started buying up all the DC classic stuff, even though I wasn't a DC guy, but he got me into DC stuff. So I spent way too much there. But I also got first crack at a lot of things. I remember the Solo Twins wave of the 3 3/4 Star Wars figures.
Right.
Those were, like, impossible to find. The one, was he like assistant manager or something like that? So there was a locked closet in one of the office rooms. And it's like, hey, come back to the office. And he opens the door. He throws his box at my feet. Pick what you want. So I picked a bunch of them, including the Solo Twins. And I had never seen them in stores after that.
Wow. Very cool. If you could create any toy, what would you want to create? So basically, whatever toy company, whatever it is, they give you the keys to the kingdom and say you can do whatever you want. What would you make?
Well, there's that Raul Julia figure.
Right.
And then I'm going to go back to what I said when we were on last time, the Machiko Soga box set of Rita and all of her other Super Sentai or Tokusatsu appearances. Because we've never gotten one that looks like her.
Right. What is the one piece of advice you would give the toy collecting fandom?
It's kind of a mix of, okay, come on, they're just toys. Try to think about things rationally. And have fun with it.
I think that's going to be almost everybody's advice at this point, which is just have fun with it kind of thing. What is advice you'd give to kids who enjoy toys?
Don't be afraid to enjoy it, because when you hit a certain age, you're just going to be miserable like everyone else. So,
Very true.
Soak up these times when you can.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back to close the show after this.
Hello, geeks and geekettes! Looking for a podcast that covers a vast array of topics? Then check out Altered Geek Unleashed, where we discuss our thoughts on this week's geeky news, tech, gaming, television shows, movies, cartoons, comics, and more. So, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks. Every Friday on the GeekCast Radio Network.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing. Car.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
GCRN, the superhero webcomic. GCRN's got superhero antics and sexy girls. For action, comedy, mayhem, and more, read it now at dasien.com. DASIEN.com.
So let's say you're looking for a podcast of your favorite 80s comic books, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, He-Man, etc. Where are you going to go to find us?
Welcome to Star Joe's Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan.
And I'm Chuck. That's right, everybody. We're the Star Joes. We host a podcast called Star Joe's Podcast, where we talk about your favorite comic books, your favorite toys of all the 80s properties.
Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Mask, Thundercats, Voltron, you name it, we cover it. If it's in the 80s, we'll cover it at some point.
Yes, so what you want to do to find us, you can go to iTunes, you can go to www.starjoes.com.
And remember, the Force will be with you.
Because knowing us is half the battle.
Do you like retro cartoons? Then Saturday Morning Rewind is the podcast for you. Join them each month as they talk about classic cartoons and interview legendary voice actors like Jim Cummings.
I am the terror that flaps in the night.
Corey Burton.
Sometimes toys can be so funny.
Rob Paulson.
Sure, Brain, but how are we going to find chaps our size?
Nancy Cartwright and many more.
Eat my shorts.
So grab a bowl of Lucky Charms.
They're magically delicious.
Put on your hammer pants. Go to SaturdayMorningRewind.com. And be prepared to feel like a kid again. Once again, that's SaturdayMorningRewind.com. Saturday Morning Rewind was voted best podcast ever by its host, Tim Nidell. So it's gotta be good.
Because the world needs another movie podcast.
The GeekCast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure, The Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news, play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series, where we review noted directors' movies, film by film. Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or GeekCastRadio.com.
The Pullbag is GCRN's comic book review and discussion-based podcast. Join your hosts, TFG and Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we make our way through the comics we are reading. Inside the Pullbag, you'll also find back-issue classics, origins episodes of how we get into comics, and our general comic discussions will all be held after dark. You can find the Pullbag every Wednesday in iTunes and on www.geekcastradio.com. Make your great escape into comics and jump into the Pullbag today.
It's true, Batsy. I know everything. And kinda like the kid who peeks at his Christmas presents, I must admit, it's sadly anticlimactic.
Alright, we are back here on ToyCast, and before we close it out, you have anything you'd like to promote, sir, or anything you want to share with the folks?
I guess you can just find me on... I'm on Facebook and Instagram mainly. I know you point out that I still have Twitter, but I don't use it. But I think my most snarky... I enjoy Instagram more than Facebook at this point, because I can just put an image and be really snarky with it, or I can take something completely out of context with no explanation to it. So you can find me at a.dasbaron, and then... on Facebook, it's @DASBARON.
Very cool, very cool. All right, thank you for joining us here on ToyCast. If you'd like to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on this and all of our other episode posts from this show and all the other shows we do. Send an email to feedback@geekcastradio.com. Here are all the ways you can listen to us nowadays. Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and of course the home where our files exist, Spreaker, as well as any other podcatching client you choose to use. However, I prefer you use one of these. Preferably, I use Spotify. Leave the show's feedback in iTunes. Yes, iTunes is still a thing. For PC users, Mac users, I think Mac users, I don't know, because I'm not a Mac user. I haven't been a Mac user since 1991. But iTunes still is a thing. I still check the reviews over there. Follow us on Twitter. I am at TF2 and Mike. You can also follow at TF ToyCast for the show and at GeekCast Radio for the network updates. become a fan on Facebook, go to facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network. You can also go to facebook.com/TF ToyCast over there and like our pages. For now, I am TFG and Mike with...
Hey, Das Baron. Keep it sexy.
How am I supposed to follow that up?
You don't.
Join us next time when we'll be talking more toys here on ToyCast. It might be the first display case episode of the new generation of the podcast.
You check in, but you don't check out.